The markers. Mysterious and deadly, dangerous and malignant. The markers are a form of ancient and yet very advanced alien technology, featured in the game Dead Space's universe. These enigmatic objects are found throughout the Milky Way galaxy on various planets, moons, and in space. Today I will be looking at what the markers are, what they do, how they do it, and when and where in the universe do these dark objects originate. The markers appear as double helical, almost alien DNA structures, with strange alien writings along the side of the device, which seem to be an actual genetic code for the Necromorphs. This very external design choice seems to hold some symbolism to the actual purpose of the marker itself, which I'll be going into shortly. In terms of the markers themselves, there are two types, with the original being a black marker, which originally originated from an unknown extraterrestrial source. Then you have the red markers. These markers are unique from the black markers in the fact that they are artificial creations of the black markers by other alien races other than the original creators of the markers. The markers are very durable and versatile. They can survive the vacuum of space and also entering the atmospheres of planets and moons. Markers can also be broken or fractured into very small pieces, and their effects will continue to emanate unless they are practically reduced to atoms. What I mean by their effects is that these devices emit some kind of strange, unknown kind of electromagnetic energy. This fact will become very important later in the video. Markers also possess some kind of AI system and are able to receive stimulus of some kind and use it to perform decision making and detect and respond to the progression of their host civilization. The markers are also linked through some kind of faster than light communication system and are able to use this greatly to their advantage. In the simplest of terms, the markers have one main purpose, and that is to create the Necromorphs, and following that, a Brethren moon. Now, let's start at the very beginning. A black marker, or a collection of them, will be created on what is known as a Brethren moon. Brethren moons are massive biomasses of necromorph tissue, and once the necromorphs have achieved this state, the Brethren reach a state of consciousness, where they can then construct advanced black marker technology, and after the Brethren moon has constructed these markers, the structure is then pushed away from the biomass, and the marker is sent to travel through space in various directions towards various locations. For as long as a Brethren moon exists, it can continue to pump out markers. These black markers will continue to travel throughout the cosmos until they make a chance encounter. If the marker happens to crash on a planet or a moon, it will lay at rest, and if its destination possesses life forms, the marker will begin its first function. The first function of a marker is to begin to emanate an electromagnetic signal throughout that world. This process begins by influencing a species or guiding them through their evolutionary stages, forcing upon a selected sentient species a forced evolution. The marker's goal is to influence the species to a degree that particular species is able to successfully form a civilization with millions, if not billions, of individual organisms within it. After the marker is able to successfully guide the species into a flourishing culture, the real trouble begins. The marker's influence extends to the species' control over their decision making to a higher degree. The result begins with the species unknowingly and uncontrollably overpopulating and causing an energy crisis, with the civilization's power needs reaching a point where they cannot meet their own energy requirements. These two factors begin to wear at the now advanced species. The species now falls into a state of desperation and struggle to find a new energy source before their civilization fails. It is only at this point that the black marker will make its presence known to the general populace. The black marker will pose itself as an energy source that holds a supposed source of limitless energy. It acts as a savior, the bringer of salvation. Higher intelligence level individuals within the host civilization have their minds seeded with how to create more markers. It's at this point that the second stage of the process begins, as the species in question is influenced by the markers to believe that the markers are simply some alien energy source, and so they are driven to recreate the markers, duplicating them and creating the red markers. The species will place them throughout their homeworld and spread them amongst their civilization. Unbeknownst to them, the various markers around the world will go to act as emanators and boosters for the strange electromagnetic signal emanated by the black marker. The third stage of this process begins now, as the various markers begin to emanate a new altered signal. The markers now act to reanimate necrotic tissues, which is basically dead tissues and cells of the species that have essentially become host to this strange parasitic presence. With the markers now spread across the world and massive overpopulation crisis at a head, this stage acts to reanimate the dead individuals of the species, rewriting their genetic code and transforming them into hideous and fearsome necromorphic creatures. The necromorphs are able to infest the world very quickly, as there is essentially no way to quarantine them, as there are markers situated ideally in pretty much all areas of the world, making quarantine near impossible. And to top that off, the larger death rate with the ever-growing population ensured that at any one time there will be a sizable mass of dead organisms to reanimate. What complements this outbreak is that even the living organisms are affected at this point. The living organisms are sent crazy, essentially experiencing widespread delusions, hallucinations, and suffering a dementia-like disease. But it doesn't end there. Homicidal and suicidal tendencies are greatly amplified by these symptoms, and by the markers themselves. This is in an act to influence more individuals to kill each other and themselves, giving more fuel to the fire of necrotic tissues for reanimation. The Necromorph outbreak is a terrifying event, as the world begins to immediately falter under the influence of the marker. The necrotic tissue forms into a nightmarish, extremely hostile, and extremely deadly organism in order to be able to attack and kill, and then further infect victims with the contagious necromorphic genetic code. The final step is what is known as convergence. When a convergence event occurs, this process is one of both beauty and absolute horrific and godly proportions. Once the Necromorph outbreak has successfully converted all life forms into the creatures, or at least most of them, a final signal will begin emanating from the black marker. The signal instructs the red markers to do the same and force all necromorphs to coalesce around their closest marker. The black marker then lifts from its eon-long rest to purge the veil of the world's atmosphere, sitting in the border between space and the planet or moon's atmosphere. The marker begins to summon all necromorphs and red markers to join it in the heavens. The necromorphs again undergo a metamorphosis as their individual biomass is transformed into a collective, single, massive organism, now known as a Brethren Moon. The remaining biomass of the world, including all animals and plant species, will eventually be converted and pulled to the Brethren Moon, and the process will come to an end as the new Brethren Moon connects via the electromagnetic signal to the other necromorph moons around the galaxy. Now it will go dormant, with no other life forms to transform and absorb. As the Brethren Moon sleeps, it will slowly produce more black markers and eject them into space to begin the process anew, further spreading the infestation throughout the stars. While we know that markers come from Brethren Moons and the moons come from markers, it's hard to pin down the exact creation point of the markers themselves. It's obvious that the markers are some kind of advanced form of alien technology, and it's likely that the race that created them existed many millions, if not billions of years prior to the events depicted in Dead Space. They, at the very least, exceed 65 million years prior to dead space, as a black marker stranded on an asteroid colliding with Earth is what actually caused the extinction of the dinosaurs in this universe. And as it appears that the markers travel at sublight speed, and so slower than the speed of light, they would need a very long time to move between star systems before even a slight chance of it contacting a habitable world. In my best guess, the markers are some kind of progenitor or terraforming device. They go about the universe creating brethren moons constructed out of necromorph alien genetics. Whether this be the original creator's genetic material is unclear, and it is not really known if a necromorph moon or brethren moon is the final stage of the entire process. As once one is created, it simply starts to pump out other markers and then go into a connected hibernation with the other moons around the cosmos. Almost as if this is all building to some larger event. This event could be the re-emergence of the creators of the markers to claim their new terraformed worlds for their own. Maybe it's building to a new species, or maybe the necromorphs are the end goal. If the moon is the end goal, perhaps the creators of the markers saw this as a holy crusade, to unionize the universe's countless species under a single species to rule them all. Could it be that a universe, or at least a galaxy-wide reset, eliminating biodiversity in its entirety, was done by the creators, seeing the necromorphs as the epitome of biological perfection and evolution's end? It's also entirely possible that the markers and necromorphs are an extermination or a super weapon, designed to ensure no rival species rises to stand against the creators or spread throughout the cosmos. We can go on all day speculating, however we get no closer to an answer, as essentially no evidence currently exists in the Dead Space lore other than to what the plan is, or what is taking place. But whatever it is, it must have some universal size ramifications in store for life as a whole. Now, while we know very little of the markers' history and the history of the creators, we do know quite a bit about the markers' involvement with at least one other alien species and the human race itself. At some point 100 million years ago, a planet by the name of Tau Volantis became the resting place of a marker. The species that lived there underwent the same process as any. Much later, around 65 million years ago, another black marker that had hitched a ride on an asteroid, unintentionally of course, crashed into Earth in the Gulf of Mexico. This event led to the extinction of the dinosaurs and reshaped the planet's biosphere completely. As already stated, a similar set of steps began here on Earth, with the marker beginning to influence a particular species, which would eventually go on to evolve into Homo sapiens. Jumping back to Tau Volantis, at around 2 million years ago, the convergence event had begun. The once aquatic world species saw the beginning of the convergence, and with the Brethren Moon forming above, they acted with haste. These aliens were able to rapidly develop a new type of technology, simply known as the Machine. The device was designed to freeze their planet and the Brethren Moon forming above, then crashing them into each other, which was sort of like a doomsday device that ensured the mutual destruction of this alien species and the necromorphs alike. Now, while they were successful in freezing the convergence in place, the collision never occurred, due to the aliens dying off and being killed before they could complete their plan. And so the Brethren Moon, with the marker now at its center, began to transmit a message out to the other markers to come to the planet, to make it whole and to turn it off, referring to the convergence and the doomsday device respectively. And now it waited for its call to be answered. Back on Earth, following these events, the human race emerged as we know it today, within the last 200 to 100,000 years, and by the 20th century had seen a massive spike in its population, with humans becoming the undisputed apex predator of Earth, with our energy needs growing larger and larger as the years went on. and so the human race flourished on Earth until about the end of the 21st century. Leading into the 23rd century, things on Earth had reached a maximum. The population was ripe for harvest, and so the black marker here activated. It first started affecting the population around the Gulf of Mexico, before gaining the attention of a research team headed by Michael Altman. The team was able to recover the artifact from the now flooded crater and began work on analysing it. Unfortunately for the would-be necromorphs, Altman was able to actually determine the purpose of the object, and so worked hard to discover a way to essentially jam the marker's signal. Then, when he couldn't, he sank the research station housing the marker back to the cold depths of the crater. Sadly for Altman, he was soon assassinated by two men working for the government, who stole his work and research on the marker. Michael Altman's legacy did not end here though. While the government tried to cover up what had happened to Altman, news of his work and circumstances of his death turned him into something of a martyr. Soon after this, a newly formed religion emerged, the Church of Unitology, who would come to see Altman and his work as a central part of their beliefs, seeing him as a prophet that the marker spoke to. However, while this was sort of the case, Altman's aims were to eliminate the marker and not to assist it like the church had believed. After these events, Altman's research was used to eventually create 3 red markers on 3 separate classified worlds: Aspera, Cremar, and Aegis 7. Shortly after their conception, the facilities on these planets were overrun with necromorph outbreaks and were forcibly shut down, with the interstellar government and the sovereign colonies doing their best to erase all records of them ever existing. Fast forwarding to the year 2311, Tau Volantis had been colonized by humans under the command of the sovereign colonies. Humanity had seemingly set up a colony there and had been drawn there in the first place due to the marker on the Brethren moon wishing to restart the paused convergent event. A doctor by the name of Earl Serrano actually discovered the events that had occurred there in the previous millions of years before their arrival, with the ancient alien race that evolved on the planet. He wanted to discover the origin of the marker's energy source. He was apparently influenced by the Earth marker to travel to the planet. Once set up on the world, Serrano's research led him to discovering that the frozen planet was covered in countless thousands of red markers that had not yet joined with the frozen Brethren moon in orbit. Soon, inevitably, another necromorph outbreak occurred. A general named Spencer Mahad activated the kill order known as Scenario 5, which resulted in the almost completely successful containment of the necromorph outbreak. Everyone at the facility was killed in the process, and a technology was left behind there known as the Codex, which was left unused. The Codex was supposed to be able to complete the machine that was left there by the aliens of Tau Volantis, finally being able to destroy the nearly completed Brethren moon. However, this failed with Scenario 5. Much later in the timeline, by the year of 2508, humanity had further begun to spread through the stars and establish many dozens of off-world colonies. However, despite their success as a species, the fact of overpopulation and a massive energy crisis soon again reared its head, forcing humans to seek out new means of obtaining energy. Soon, the USG Ishimura was sent to recover a red marker from Aegis 7, one of the classified testing planets that had been covered up. The necromorph situation that had not been dealt with there led to the ship being overrun, and soon after, the USG Killian and Isaac Clarke arrived at the ship and eventually put a stop to the outbreak and returned the marker to the planet, with a collection of mined rocks being used to destroy the planet, and supposedly the marker along with it. After these events, Isaac Clarke would have many more encounters with the terrifying reality that was the markers. He fought back another outbreak on the USG O'Bannon, where a man named Nolan Stross caused a necromorph outbreak by salvaging shards of a red marker that was still functional. The two eventually ended up on Titan's station on a program run by the EGCA to revive the markers via a testing program. Over the 3 years that they were there, the scientists recovered the markers' signal codes from their consciousness that had been obviously imprinted there from their overexposure to the markers. Until in 2511, another marker had been constructed there and resulted in the demise of the Titan station, with Clark and a woman by the name of Ellie Langford able to escape its destruction and that of the marker. Soon after, in the year 2154, Clark and Langford came about Dr. Serrano's work on Tau Volantis, and with a man named Jacob Arthur Danick, a part of the Unitology religion, attempting to complete the moon, Clark saw it as their mission to prevent this. Once there, Clark and Langford completed the machine by use of the codex left there centuries ago. This completed the final stage of the machine's task and smashed the Brethren moon down onto the surface of the planet, causing the complete destruction of both. After these events, Langford presumed that Clark was dead, and so returned to Earth, with Isaac Clarke actually being revealed to have survived the ordeal. However, unfortunately for the galaxy at large, and Earth in general, the Brethren moon that had been destroyed, along with Tau Volantis, was actually able to transmit a warning signal to all other moons throughout the galaxy. The Brethren have awoken, and they are coming for Earth to converge their biomass there, and to put an end to the pest that is humanity. What will become of humanity is uncertain, but if even a few moons converge on Earth, actual hell is sure to be raised. Throughout the Dead Space games, many various markers have been presented to us, and they seem to pop up quite frequently around the galaxy. The question is, how can you destroy them? While they are extremely durable and powerful, there are a few ways to bring an end to them. Now, while conventional explosives and projectile weaponry can damage and destroy parts of the markers, if only a shard or a collection of pieces remain, the marker is still seen to be able to function as if nothing happened. Atomizing their structure completely and disintegrating their individual molecular structures would seem to be the most effective way of doing this. This could be done in a number of ways, and the markers could be dropped into something like a black hole with extreme gravitational forces, spaghettifying it before the eventual contact with the event horizon completely obliterates its physical form. However, simpler methods could include maybe shooting the object into a star and allowing the immense heat and pressure to melt it down to nothing, as well as a massive directed energy weapon, or something like a starship's reactor core, where the mighty buildup of energy would completely obliterate the marker. Other than that, another interesting method to destroying a marker is through slamming it with a planet or a moon. We have seen a notable example of this with Tau Volantis, with the forming Brethren moon above the planet's surface sent hurtling back to the surface of the planet, colliding it and completely destroying both. Within the games, a less conventional and yet more difficult way of dealing with a marker is by mentally conquering its psychic influence within your consciousness. Essentially, you are rejecting the callings of the marker by overcoming its hold on your mind. While this might seem easy, the markers are designed for this very purpose. But in any case, whatever you choose to do and whichever method you wish to pursue, make sure you realize that the markers carry intelligence, some kind of interconnected AI network, and just attempting to destroy a marker will carry great risk. The marker may decide to fight back by producing horrific and uncontrollable mind games and hallucinations, with a mass of necromorphs in order to defend itself. And if all else fails, as in the case of Tau Volantis, and a Brethren moon is openly attacked and destroyed, then the markers there will reach out to the others around the galaxy, inform them of the threat, and so the Brethren moons will awaken from their slumber and converge on the source of the hostile threat, and eliminate it with no conceivable way to stop them. What other videos would you guys like to see? If you have any ideas or have any questions you would like answered, please meet me down in the comments. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like and go check out Law and Explained on Twitter and Discord. If you would like to support myself and the channel's content, as well as get access to behind the scenes and early content, as well as other rewards, you can become a channel member. I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.